Paradoxically, my life project in developing what everybody calls today Jewish psychology, my own kind of attitude to it, formulation, started from the influence that Max Weber, the father of sociology and religion, had on my thinking. I mean, someone has to accept his assumption that every normative system, every psychology of everyday life begins somewhat in a religious sphere, and it goes through a process of secularization, and it becomes very secular, very detached from religion. He proved, for example, that the whole Western world, the capitalistic world, is based on the Protestant individualistic, achievement-oriented behavior, which says very briefly that since the predestination is what determines human beings' fate, means that everybody is born damned, and there's nothing can be done to change that fate. Only if you want to find out retroactively whether you're born chosen or damned, you have to work hard in your profession, in your beruf, in your calling, and if you succeed economically, that means that that you are chosen by God. That was a revolution in religious thinking. Obviously, it created an individualistic system, a very egocentric kind of oriented thing. I have to achieve, and if I succeed, therefore, you know, that means that I'm chosen by God. It becomes, psychology was foremost influenced by it, by developing a system which is, you know, based on, I have to worry about myself. I have to be, to search into my soul, and nothing to do with the other. By contrast, I discovered that, you know, that if this is so, and we know that, let's say, the passivity of the Indian is because he is growing up believing that he has to merge with the cosmos, whereas in the personal work he has to work hard in this world. And then Judaism, then every religion has some kind of impact on a human being's behavior. And I had to go into the Jewish system because it comes completely different. Whereas in 4 different areas, Judaism, in terms of the psychology it creates of everyday life, differs from the Western Protestant kind of psychology, if you may call it so. And one is the egocentric behavior changes in Judaism into an altar-centric. The other, someone who prays for the other, he is redeemed first, which means everybody is in charge of everybody else. And that is completely collective and is different from the egocentric kind of behavior which is the Western psychology creates. The second part is that the multiple interpretation of everyday life, the 70 faces that you can use to interpret Torah, God's, you know, given Torah, created also in a secular sense the most I would say pluralistic and the most democratic behavior, because even if there are contradictory ideas, Judaism can say that both are true, both are real, both are, they can live in the tension of that creates between them. The third part is that the concept of time, which is different from the deterministic one, is so formulated that that a person can change his life interpretation retroactively. And on the contrary, it's not deterministic. It doesn't start from original sin and goes to the, you know, kind of a end of the days, doomsday kind of conception. But the idea of tshuva means turning around. You can turn your time. Someone can come into our clinic and say, I came, you know, to get help. What kind of help, as the psychologist or the therapist, you want? And you would say, I hope with your help that in the future I'll have a better past. That is possible in Jewish conception, but it's not possible in the deterministic Western Protestant life view. And that is obviously comes out from the multiple system of 70 faces to the Torah. You can interpret and reinterpret, and you can create a life story so you can live with it. You don't change the facts. So first I called it rebiography, and many doctoral works were done already on this basis. And then I changed it into recomposing your life melody. I mean, if you take the same tunes, but you create a new melody. You don't change the tunes, but the recomposition turns it around. The fourth part is we'll say the attitude toward the irrational, to the mystic. In the life of a human being in the West, he has to conform to rational decision making. He's not allowed anything that is schizophrenic or anything that is irrational. It must be banned. In the Jewish system, we have the Pardes system. The idea that a person can come into our clinic and we say, let's go talk pshat, which means regular, normal, rational. And if it doesn't help you, okay, let's go to drash, to rebiography. The second possibility is still your life story bothers you. You still hear voices of Satan chasing you. Okay, let's go into Sod, the mystic area. This is legitimized by the Jewish system, and someone can walk on the bridge between the rational world, handle his business in everyday life in a rational sense, but if he has troubles and he has all kind of atrocities and traumas, he can then interpret them in a mystic way according to the Kabbalah, which is very popular today. And that's not rational, but it's mystic. And this is also legitimized in the Jewish thought system. So altogether, we have a completely different psychology which has more than 4 areas of would say, differentiation between the Western, and I had to develop it. A person, in my opinion, cannot understand as a therapist a behavior of a religious person, of a non-religious person, of a Jewish or an Oriental, without going back to his respective religion that affected his behavior without him knowing even. So this is what our system actually provides in our center.
For the past 35 years, my father has been writing theory, an alternative theory of psychology based on Jewish sources. And a few years ago, something very exciting happened. We created a non-profit organization called the Rotenberg Center for Jewish Psychology, which is in the name of my late brother, Boaz Rotenberg, who was killed in the army 20 years ago. And this is a very, very significant thing that we did in order to perpetuate his name and make him continue to exist in some form. So what we have done is a group of therapists have got together and began to learn these ideas from this theory and see how can we turn them into a therapeutic system. And this is what has happened. We have opened up a course for therapists, psychologists, social workers, all kinds of therapists, psychodrama people who come and learn, that are already working but feel that something is missing in the way they have been working. And they are looking for the Jewish ideas which have given us so much. One of the main ideas that we use and learn very, very deeply is the idea of tzimtzum, contraction, which is very different from the Western way of thinking. Instead of the way we are used to saying that a person grows, his personal growth usually comes from an egocentric approach, where man feels, if I become stronger, prettier, better, I will conquer. That means that I am assertive now and I am on the way to a growing path. This is a very different idea, the idea of tzimtzum. It says that man's growth actually comes from contracting and making space for the other. When one learns from the other, one gives to the other, that is part of what makes him grow. This is a very different thought. My father calls it an alter-centric approach as opposed to an egocentric approach. This is something that we psychologists feel gives us a more open way of learning, a more pluralistic way of learning. It gives space for the deviant, space for the other, space for a father to make room for his child, space for a teacher to listen to his student, and also between colleagues. One can learn from the other, like the wonderful model that he has brought from the two sons of Jacob, Issachar and Zvulun, who made space for each other. One was in the trade world and was a businessman, as one can call it, and the other one was a scholar, an intellectual scholar, and they both respected each other and made space for what the other represents, which created a beautiful relationship, which becomes a model for us as therapists to use in our clinic.